in a question or a paragraph, or when you're asked to write about it in an essay, your mind will easily substitute one word for the other because they're so close. So we need to make sure, you need to make sure that you can see the difference in the words and that you are crystal clear on what the difference between solvent, soluble, insoluble, saturated, and dissolved means. Okay? Dissolve does not mean disappear, by the way. Some people will say that to me. Disappear is destroyed. No. Dissolve means what? Anybody? Cameron? Huh? To disperse inside a liquid is a good answer. Yeah? You have a question? You still need a packet? Yes?
I still need one.
You also need a packet? This whole row didn't get a packet? So you should write those words down, shouldn't you? Dissolve, solution, insoluble, soluble, solute, solvent, saturate. Now you should be writing that in the your body of your notebook. You should have your notes divided into 1/3, 2/3, which I already see some of you don't have that. How are you going to reduce all of these words into one concept? How are you going to do that? I think that's a difficult some people have. Difficulty some people have.
Solution vocab?
Say that again?
A solution vocab?
Yeah. That's it. So it's real easy. And yet people find that difficult. I don't know where my eraser's gone to. Dissolved, solution, insoluble, soluble, solute, solvent, saturated. They all sound alike. And if you're reading quickly on a quiz, guess what? They might look the same. Danger, Will Robinson, danger. There's an issue here. I know you don't get the remark because you're as a generation on the board. I don't see an excuse for that.
You emailed this. What if we printed it out and put it in there?
Yeah, no, I don't want you to do that. No. You can put it in a pocket.
But you want it written down too?
You know what? Logically, I would say yes. Normally, I would say go ahead and print it, and then as you take notes, I want you to go ahead and write the notes in the packet. But if you see this, I even left you a space for notes. Understand what I expect in a notebook. You have that rubric as your guide. I'm going to come around and give you pointers every day. I'll be looking to see what kind of notes you took. By the way, if you look at the rubric, you see these diagrams. When you see a diagram, when you see a drawing on the board, whether I do it by hand or you see it up there, I expect that you're going to get it done. You're going to get it written, especially if I draw it, because if I'm drawing it and I'm writing it, then you should be able to write and draw it at that same speed. Does that make sense? If I got it on a slideshow, I can understand how you might not be able to get that material I was going to say to you. But my problem with that now is that what I understand is that you're not writing this the way I would like you to take notes. You're not being sufficient enough. I hate to use the word, but I think you're being rather lazy. And so I need to help you not be lazy. So let's start off with this packet. Now we have some words here. Dissolved, solution, insoluble, soluble, solute, solvent, and saturated. A lot of S words. A lot of S words. Let me tell you right now. And I keep giving you these kind of foreshadowing warnings. When I give you a warning, you need to say, okay, Mr. Mendoza is giving me a warning saying that people mess this up a lot. So guess what? You better be extra careful when you're looking at these words. This is where people get it confused all the time. Let me make sure I don't get it confused on the quiz. Right? That's why I'm warning you, because people do. Yes? You didn't get any? It's day 25.
What?
I know. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to go online tonight or in the library downstairs, and you're going to look at the lesson plan page of your website. And you're going to look at your notebook and you see what days don't you have recorded. Is that understood? I'm not going to spend class time doing that. That's your job. Yeah.
Does it matter if they're not in order, like 25 and...
Absolutely it matters. They should be in order. They have to be in order. Which is why I started off the year by telling you I would want a 3-ring binder for this class. I would suggest strongly get a 3-ring binder so you can poke holes in things I hand out instead of stapling things into a notebook, right? And I would get specifically a 3-ring binder for this class because you're going to have to turn the notebooks in. You don't have to turn in the notebooks for all your other classes, but you have to study for your other classes. That's why I told you day 2, that's what you should be doing. We're on day 25, and still people aren't heeding my warnings. Day 25, we're doing notebook, reset, and debrief. Right? That's what we're doing. Again, this is the kind of thing, if you miss it, the title, just go to the webpage. No excuses for this notebook. So just like Hadlock said, you could call it Solutions Vocab. And as we go through the vocabulary and you define each one, 1, 2, 3, 4, you leave some space for your definitions and your drawings, 5, 6, and 7. As you leave your space for your definitions and drawings, you're going back to study. You want to know if you know your vocabulary for solutions. You can cover this side up and test yourself, which is what you should be doing. That when if one of you tell me you studied, you use that word, I studied for this quiz. I expect you're going to be going to your notebook, covering this side up, asking yourself, do I know these words? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Checking your work, checking to see if you got it right. Those that you didn't get right, maybe you're writing it 10 times, 15 times, whatever you have to do to get that in your head. You can make index cards for these and start studying your index cards. Whatever works for you. But if you don't have the vocabulary, I guarantee you are not going to pass the quiz. If you don't know of course the questions are hard for you. You don't know the vocabulary. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are the words. So who can tell me what dissolve means? Or somebody already said it. Dissolve? What does it mean? To disperse in a liquid is what someone said earlier. Right? So people understand what that means? Not really. Okay. Well, that's why this was an inquiry-based lesson. Should have been thinking about it yesterday. So let's go on. Let's see if we can take a look and see what does that mean, to disperse in a liquid. So you take on the back of the first page, it says melting and dissolving. Melting and dissolving. You all realize that melting and dissolving are two different things, right? You say yes. Who does not understand that? That melting and dissolving are two different things. Who does not understand that? Okay, so based on the fact that no one is raising your hand, you're telling me that everyone understands that there's a difference between melting and dissolving. Can anybody explain the difference between melting and dissolving? Go ahead. Go. I'm not going to say your names, we're on camera. Go.
Well, basically, dissolving is when you have some type of solid and a liquid, and it kind of it becomes a mixture. Depending on what the material is, and it mixes with the liquid, or it might sink to the bottom. And melting is when
Right. If it sinks to the bottom, it did not dissolve. If it goes into a mixture and it looks like it's not there, or it changes the color of the liquid, we call it a solution, right? Okay. But then what happens in melting?
Melting, I want to say it's like a chemical bond where all the substances mix together and form one different substance.
It's a really good guess. Really close to the right answer. And you know, the thing is, that what bugs me is that I know a lot of people here don't know what's going on, and they're not raising their hands for some reason. Go ahead.
Melting is just a phase change of the solid or matter, and like dissolving is the solute, like mixing chemicals to make something different with the solution.
Very good. That's a much better answer. It's an excellent answer. See how close you were to the right answer? All right, so when we're talking about melting means you are taking this solid, you're increasing the temperature, and it's going from 100%, whatever it is, 100% X solid, to the liquid phase that's still 100% X, but now it's liquid. So when you dissolve something, you don't change the chemical bonds. When you melt something, you don't change the chemical bonds. So melted water is still water, frozen water is still water, gas water is still water. That's why it's a physical change, right? Because the bonds haven't changed. So see how we need bonds to understand what's going on with matter? Do you see that? You have to understand that the bonds, the sharing of those electrons, has not changed with water. The only things that's changed is what? The intermolecular forces, which are what? In the case of water. Hydrogen bonding. Good. That's the biggest one for water is hydrogen bonding. So we've increased the kinetic energy, right? The kinetic energy of the solid, we've increased it to the point where the hydrogen bonding is overtaken by the repulsive forces, and you get this liquid. All right? So if you can remember, it's like a tug of war, right? The tug of war, hydrogen bonding is trying to keep them all together. All the repulsive forces are trying to push them apart. When they're solid, when they're liquid, they're kind of in the middle. When they're solid, they go in one direction. When they're gas, they go in another direction. So they're really repulsed when they're gas. They're kind of repulsed when they're liquid, and they're much more bonded, much more together, organized when they're solids. That's really the difference between